Awakening the Last Guardian. The stars wept silence as the Craver Imperium's warships descended upon Nebulon Prime. Once a jewel of commerce and culture at the edge of the Andromeda Arm, now just another conquest in the relentless march of the scaled conquerors. Plasma cannons tore through orbital defenses like paper, while dropships delivered hordes of soldiers to the surface. Within hours, the planet's blue skies turned ash gray, and its cities became graveyards. Across 20 systems, the story repeated with brutal efficiency. The Craver Imperium, with their biological ships grown from the husks of conquered worlds and weapons that harnessed dark energy, seemed unstoppable. One by one, the greatest civilizations of the Galactic Alliance collapsed. The crystalline Tresians, the gaseous Voldari, even the technologically advanced XN2. None could stand against the Craver war machine. On the edge of Alliance space, aboard the battered command ship Eternal Light, the remaining leaders gathered in desperation. Supreme Admiral Zara Talvik, a slender Tresian whose crystalline skin reflected the dim emergency lighting, addressed the council. Her normally melodious voice now carried the weight of endless defeats. The Craver fleet approaches the Helios cluster. When it falls, they will have a direct path to our remaining core worlds. Our forces are scattered, our supplies dwindling. We have perhaps 3 standard cycles before total collapse. The room fell silent. 12 representatives from 12 different species exchanged glances of quiet despair. They had tried everything: conventional warfare, guerrilla tactics, even peace negotiations. Nothing had worked. General Brockthar, a massive Durrani with scaled skin and 4 powerful arms, slammed his fist on the table. We must make our final stand at Helios. Die with honor rather than run like prey. And achieve nothing but extinction, countered Milavox, the Centaurian ambassador whose tentacled head pulsed with agitation. There must be another option. From the shadows at the edge of the chamber stepped a figure most had ignored. Historian Elara Sen, keeper of the Forbidden Archives. Ancient even by the standards of the long-lived archivists, her small frame seemed bent under the weight of knowledge itself. "There is one possibility," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. All heads turned. One power, the Craver fear. Admiral Talvik narrowed her eyes. What power could that be? The Craver fear nothing. Elara activated a small holographic projector. Above the table appeared an image that few recognized. A bictal species, similar to many humanoids in the galaxy, yet distinctly different. Humans, Elara said. Confusion spread across the room. Humans? Asked Brockthar. I know no such species. Because they were erased from galactic records, Elara replied. Quarantined behind the Perseus Veil over 3 centuries ago by unanimous decision of the Galactic Council. Why would any species be erased from history? Asked Talvik. Elara's ancient eyes darkened. Because they terrified us. Humans were the youngest spacefaring race we had ever encountered, barely 1,000 years of civilization compared to our tens of thousands. Yet in just 2 centuries after achieving faster-than-light travel, they had fought and won wars against species that had dominated the stars since before their ancestors climbed down from trees. The projection changed, showing images of battles, primitive by current standards, yet devastatingly effective. Ships maneuvering in patterns no eye would devise. Weapons deployed in ways that defied conventional military doctrine. Humans didn't just fight. They revolutionized warfare. While we developed technology over millennia through careful, methodical research, humans did it through intuitive leaps, desperate improvisation, and a willingness to take risks that seemed insane to other species. If they were so formidable, said Milavox, why quarantine them rather than destroy them? Because, Elara said softly, we couldn't. 3 different species tried. All failed catastrophically. The humans didn't just defeat their attackers, they hunted them to the edge of extinction before the Council negotiated peace. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. So instead, continued Elara, The Council voted to contain them. 1,000 automated defense platforms surround their home system. Their existence was purged from records. Direct contact was forbidden. For 3 centuries, humanity has remained isolated, developing in their own way, unaware that the galaxy has deliberately forgotten them. Admiral Talvek's crystalline features hardened, and you propose we release them, after our ancestors deemed them too dangerous to exist among us. Not all of them, Ilara clarified. Just one. Before the quarantine, as a precaution, the Council preserved specimens from each major species in secret stasis facilities, living weapons to be awakened only in civilization's darkest hour. She paused. That hour has come. Within 12 hours, a small stealth vessel approached the defense perimeter around Sol's system, Earth's home. Using ancient override codes from the archives, they slipped past the automated sentinels and made for a hidden facility on Mars, Earth's rust-colored neighbor. The landing team consisted of Admiral Talvek, General Brockthar, historian Ilara, and a squad of elite Trescian guards. They found the facility exactly where the ancient records indicated, buried beneath the Martian surface, powered by geothermal energy that had kept its systems functioning for centuries. Inside, past layers of security designed to last millennia. They found rows of stasis chambers. Most were empty, their occupants long since removed or deceased, as the Council's fear of various species waxed and waned through the centuries. But in the deepest chamber, a single pod remained active, its surface covered in mourning symbols. Commander Morgan Hayes, read Ilara from the data terminal. Human military strategist, veterans of 17 interstellar conflicts, responsible for the Orion Gambit that defeated the Cerulean hive mind. One human warrior, Brockthar snorted, against an empire. Ilara didn't look up from the terminal. The records indicate Hayes specifically requested stasis after the quarantine was announced. Said that humanity would be needed again someday. Admiral Talvek studied the life signs displayed on the pod's monitoring system. 300 years in stasis. Will this human even be functional? Only one way to find out, said Ilara, initiating the revival sequence. The pod hissed as cryogenic gases vented into the room. Inside, body function slowly accelerated from near-suspended animation back to normal parameters. The translucent cover retracted, revealing a figure that seemed unremarkable by most galactic standards. Average height, compact but well-muscled build, skin the color of Earth's soil after rain. For nearly a minute, nothing happened. Then suddenly, with no transition from unconsciousness to awareness, the human's eyes snapped open, alert, calculating, and intensely focused. Before any of the aliens could react, the human moved with shocking speed, rolling from the pod and snatching a sidearm from the nearest guard. Within seconds, Commander Hayes had the weapon trained on Admiral Talvek's head, using Brockthar's massive body as cover. You have exactly 5 seconds to explain why I have been awakened, the human said, voice steady despite 3 centuries of disuse, and why I shouldn't consider this a hostile action. The Admiral raised her hand slowly. We need you, Commander Hayes. The galaxy is falling to conquerors that cannot be stopped by conventional means. And you thought of humans. It wasn't a question. After quarantining us like a disease. Yes, Ilara stepped forward, seemingly untroubled by the weapon. Because we are facing extinction. Hayes studied each alien face carefully, evaluating, assessing. Then, with a fluid motion that startled everyone, the human safed the weapon and offered it back to the guard. Show me what we're up against, Hayes said. Aboard the Eternal Light, the Alliance leaders watched in stunned silence as the human absorbed tactical data at an astonishing pace. Hayes reviewed battle footage, fleet dispositions, enemy capabilities, and resource allocations without breaks for food or rest. After 18 straight hours, the human finally spoke. Your tactics are predictable. Your formations rigid. Your commanders fight by the book. Hayes pointed to a holographic display of the most recent defeat. The Craver exploit this because they've studied how you fight for decades. And you propose what, exactly? Asked Admiral Talvik, struggling to hide her irritation. Hayes smiled for the first time, an expression that didn't reach the eyes. I propose we stop fighting like you, and start fighting like humans. The human moved to the tactical display and began rearranging fleet positions with quick, decisive gestures. First, abandon symmetrical formations. They're aesthetically pleasing, but tactically obvious. Second, we need weapons that can be jury-rigged from existing technology. Third, we reorganize your command structure. No more committees making decisions by consensus. That's blasphemy against 4,000 years of military doctrine, protested General Brockthar. Which is precisely why you're losing, Hayes countered without looking up. The Craver can predict every move you make because you follow established patterns. Humans don't. We improvise, we take risks, we do the unexpected, and die gloriously in the process, asked the Admiral. Hayes finally looked up, eyes sharp as blades. No, we win, as we always have. The human pointed to a small, unremarkable star system on the galactic map. And we'll start by letting the Craver win a major victory here. You want us to sacrifice a star system. Admiral Talvik's crystalline skin flashed with patterns indicating extreme distress. I want the Craver to think they've broken your last significant resistance, Hayes explained. While they're celebrating, we'll hit them where it hurts most. The human expanded the map to show a seemingly empty region of space. Their supply lines. For the next 3 days, Commander Hayes worked tirelessly, reconfiguring the Alliance's remaining forces into what the human called asymmetric warfare groups. Ships were stripped of unnecessary systems to increase speed and firepower. Crews were reorganized based on temperament and adaptability rather than species or rank. Most controversial was Hayes's insistence on direct command authority. No councils, no consensus, no debates in the middle of battle. Many Alliance captains balked. Some even threatened mutiny, until Hayes demonstrated the human approach in a series of training exercises. The results were undeniable. Hayes's makeshift squadrons consistently outmaneuvered and defeated the conventional Alliance formations, despite being outgunned and outnumbered. After witnessing these demonstrations, even the most traditional officers began to reconsider. Humans don't win because we're stronger or more advanced, Hayes explained to a group of skeptical captains. We win because we understand that war isn't fair, war isn't honorable, and war certainly isn't predictable. The moment you think you know what's going to happen next is the moment you've already lost. As the clock ticked down toward the Craver's advance on the Helios cluster, Admiral Talvik made her decision. Standing before the assembled Alliance leadership, her crystalline form glittering under the lights of the command center, she spoke the words that would change the course of galactic history. By the authority vested in me as Supreme Admiral of the Alliance, I hereby appoint Commander Morgan Hayes as Strategic Operations Director, with full tactical authority over all Alliance forces. The room erupted in protests, but the Admiral raised her hand for silence. We have tried our way for 2 years. We have lost 43 star systems and billions of lives. It is time to try the human way. Hayes stepped forward, face impassive, but eyes burning with the intensity that had become familiar to those who worked closely with the human. I make you one promise, the commander said, voice carrying to every corner of the room. The Craver believe they're predators, and we're prey. I'm going to show them what happens when prey decides to hunt back. As the Alliance fleet prepared for what many believed would be their final battle, few realized that a force had been awakened that the galaxy had once feared more than any invader, human ingenuity unleashed by the desperation of war. And Commander Morgan Hayes intended to remind the stars why humans had been locked away in the first place. The human way of war. The Helios cluster blazed with weapons fire as the Craver Imperium's main battle fleet descended upon what they believed was the Alliance's last organized defense. Massive dreadnoughts, their hulls grown from the biological matter of conquered worlds, moved in perfect formation, an unstoppable wall of destruction approaching the hastily assembled Alliance blockade. From his position on the command deck of the Eternal Light, Commander Morgan Hayes watched the enemy advance with calculating eyes. Around him, alien officers monitored systems with growing anxiety. The Craver outnumbered them 3-1, with superior firepower and defenses. By any conventional analysis, this battle was already lost. "They're entering optimal firing range," reported a Trescian tactical officer, her crystalline fingers dancing over holographic controls. "Enemy weapons charging." Hayes nodded, seemingly unconcerned. "Right on schedule. Signal the fleet. Operation Thunderclap commences in 30 seconds. Across the Alliance line, ship captains received the command and tensed. They had drilled Hayes's unorthodox tactics relentlessly over the past week, but many still harbored doubts. What the human proposed went against centuries of established doctrine. 20 seconds, Hayes counted down calmly. "All ships, prepare to execute on my mark." The Craver fleet continued its inexorable advance, weapons reaching full charge. Their formation was flawless, a testament to their hive-like coordination and unwavering discipline. According to every military algorithm in the galaxy, victory was assured. 10 seconds, Hayes continued. The Alliance officers braced themselves. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Execute. What happened next defied conventional battle logic. Instead of maintaining defensive positions or attempting to match the Craver's firepower, the entire Alliance fleet suddenly accelerated at maximum thrust, directly toward the enemy. At the same time, every ship activated emergency dumps of their reactor coolant, creating massive clouds of superheated plasma that obscured sensors and disrupted targeting systems. Before the Craver could adjust to this seemingly suicidal charge, the Alliance ships executed a maneuver Hayes had named the Scatter, each vessel breaking formation in a different, seemingly random direction, but actually following precise vectors calculated to exploit blind spots in the Craver formation. "All ships, weapons free. Hit your designated targets," Hayes commanded. The Alliance vessels, now inside the Craver formation, unleashed devastation. Operating on Hayes's principle of maximum damage to critical systems, they ignored the heavily armored main hulls and instead targeted engines, weapon mounts, and the barely protected command nodes that coordinated the biological ships. "Impossible," whispered Admiral Talvek as she watched the battle unfold. The rigid Craver formation, so perfect in its approach, had become a liability. Their ships, designed to face enemies head-on, struggled to track targets that had penetrated their defensive screen. Ships collided trying to reposition, while others fired indiscriminately, hitting their own vessels in the confusion. 20 minutes into the battle, the mighty Craver fleet was in disarray. A third of their ships were disabled or destroyed, while the Alliance had lost only a handful of vessels. "Pull back to Rally Point Delta," Hayes ordered as the Craver began to organize a counterattack. "We've done enough damage for now." As the Alliance ships disengage, another concept alien to most galactic military doctrines, Hayes turned to the stunned officers on the command deck. "Phase 1 complete. Now we move to Phase 2 before they can regroup." That was. Admiral Talvek struggled to find words. "Unorthodox." "That was human," Hayes corrected her. "We don't fight battles we can win conventionally. We change the rules when the game is rigged against us." For the next 2 weeks, the Alliance forces waged what Hayes called asymmetric warfare against the Craver. Instead of engaging in direct confrontations, they struck supply convoys, communications relays, and repair facilities. They used captured Craver ships to infiltrate enemy formations, then triggered self-destruct sequences when surrounded by hostile vessels. Most shocking to the Alliance officers was Hayes's insistence on psychological warfare, a concept barely understood in galactic military circles. The human had Alliance ships broadcast fabricated communications, suggesting Craver commanders were betraying each other. They left disabled enemy ships intact but stranded in empty systems, forcing the Craver to divert resources for rescue operations or abandon their own. War isn't just about destroying the enemy's ability to fight, Hayes explained during a strategy session. It's about destroying their will to fight. Make them question every decision, doubt every ally, fear every shadow. Eventually, they'll defeat themselves. The results were undeniable. Within a month, the seemingly invincible Craver advance had not only stalled but begun to reverse. Systems that had been firmly under Imperial control were now contested or liberated entirely. For the first time in years, hope flickered in Alliance territories. But with success came concerns. During a private meeting, Admiral Talvik confronted Hayes about the escalating brutality of their tactics. "Some of your methods," she hesitated, "they trouble many of our commanders, luring enemy ships into natural disasters, using civilian transportation routes for military movements. These tactics endanger non-combatants." "War endangers everyone," Hayes replied without emotion. "The difference is that I acknowledge it instead of pretending there's such a thing as clean, honorable combat when facing extinction." "Is this why humans were quarantined?" the Admiral asked quietly. "Not just your effectiveness, but your willingness to do what others would not." Hayes's expression hardened. "We were quarantined because we reminded the rest of the galaxy of truths they preferred to forget. That beneath the veneer of civilization, survival sometimes requires embracing our darkest instincts." The human's eyes fixed on Talvik's. "You awaken me to save your people. Don't question the methods you begged for." Despite the concerns, Hayes's campaign continued with relentless efficiency. Alliance morale soared with each victory, while intelligence reports indicated growing discord within Craver command structures. The momentum had shifted decisively. Then came the intelligence breakthrough they had been waiting for. A captured Craver communications officer revealed the location of the Imperial Command Nexus, a massive space station where the Craver Supreme Commander directed the war effort. More importantly, the prisoner revealed that the entire Craver command structure was centralized through organic neural links to the Supreme Commander. "Cut off the head, and the body dies," Hayes murmured upon hearing this. "This is our opportunity to end the war in one strike." The plan Hayes devised was audacious to the point of insanity. A small team would infiltrate the command nexus using a captured Craver shuttle and forged identification codes. Once inside, they would fight their way to the central control chamber and eliminate the Supreme Commander, throwing the entire Imperium into disarray. "This is a suicide mission," General Brockthar stated flatly during the briefing. "The Nexus will have thousands of warriors, automated defenses, and biological security measures tuned to detect non-Craver physiology." "Which is why I'll be leading it personally," Hayes replied, silencing the room. "This is what humans do. High-risk, high-reward operations that logically shouldn't succeed but somehow do." After hours of heated debate, the mission was approved, not because anyone believed it could succeed, but because they had run out of alternatives. The Craver, despite their setbacks, were adapting to Hayes's tactics. Time was running out. The infiltration team consisted of Hayes, General Brockthar, who refused to let the human go alone, and 6 specialists chosen for specific skills rather than rank or species. They departed aboard a captured Craver scout ship, modified to mask life signs and carry additional weapons. Against all odds, the forged credentials worked. The team docked at the command nexus during a shift change, when security protocols were at their most vulnerable. Disguised in biochemical suits that mimicked Craver life signatures, they moved through the massive station, placing explosive charges at key structural points as they proceeded. The first alarm sounded when they were 3 decks away from the central chamber. A security scan had detected anomalous readings from their suits. Within seconds, Craver warriors converged from all directions. "Implement contingency chaos," Hayes ordered as the team took defensive positions. On command, half the explosive charges they had planted detonated simultaneously, not to destroy the station, but to create maximum confusion. Environmental systems failed. Emergency protocols activated. Thousands of Craver rushed to contain damage or evacuate endangered sections. In the chaos, Hayes' team fought their way forward. 2 members fell to enemy fire. Another was separated during a bulkhead collapse. But they pushed on, using the station's own complex design against its defenders. Finally, they reached the central chamber, a massive spherical room dominated by a hovering platform, where the Supreme Commander, a Craver twice the size of its warriors, remained connected to neural interfaces that linked it to every ship and base in the Imperium. "Surrender your forces or be destroyed," Hayes demanded, weapon trained on the Supreme Commander's primary neural cluster. The massive Craver turned slowly, its compound eyes focusing on the human with cold calculation. When it spoke, its voice resonated with the harmonics of 1,000 subminds working in concert. "Human," it said, the word dripping with contempt. "The quarantine species. We suspected your involvement when our fleets began falling to irrational tactics." "Not irrational," Hayes corrected, "just not predictable by your standards." "Your tactics change nothing," the Supreme Commander continued. "The Imperium has conquered 100 species over 10,000 years. We cannot be defeated by primitives who barely understand interstellar travel." Hayes smiled, a cold expression that made even Brockthar uncomfortable. "That's your fundamental misunderstanding of humans. We don't need to understand something completely to use it effectively. We adapt. We improvise. And most importantly, the human's finger tightened on the trigger. We do what needs to be done." The Supreme Commander's outer mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Kill me, and emergency protocols will automatically trigger every Craver ship to attack the nearest populated world. Billions will die instantly. Is that what your primitive morality allows, human?" For a moment, Hayes seemed to hesitate. Then, to everyone's shock, the human lowered the weapon. "No, that's not what we planned at all." Before anyone could react, Hayes pulled a small device from a concealed pocket. Not a weapon, but a neural transmitter modified from Craver technology. "We didn't come to kill you. We came to transform you." With lightning speed, Hayes lunged forward and attached the device directly to the Supreme Commander's primary neural node. The massive Craver convulsed as the transmitter activated, flooding its hive mind with data, not destructive code, but information. Images of planets devastated by Craver forces, records of civilizations exterminated, the suffering of countless beings across the galaxy. "What your kind never understood about humans," Hayes said quietly as the Supreme Commander writhed in the grip of forced empathy, "is that our greatest weapon isn't our violence. It's our capacity to make others understand consequences." The neural link that connected the Supreme Commander to every Craver ship and soldier now transmitted something the hive mind had never experienced: the emotional impact of their conquests, the pain they had caused, the lives they had destroyed. Throughout the Imperium, Craver warriors suddenly stopped fighting. Ships powered down weapons. Attack orders were rescinded. For the first time in their evolutionary history, the predatory species was experiencing the one thing their biological programming had never allowed: remorse. 3 days later, aboard the Eternal Light, the Alliance Council received the formal surrender of the Craver Imperium. The terms, negotiated by Hayes, were neither punitive nor vengeful, another surprise to a galaxy accustomed to seeing defeated enemies enslaved or exterminated. "Why show them mercy?" asked Admiral Talvek as they watched the surrender ceremony. "After everything they've done." "Because that's the other half of being human that the galaxy forgot," Hayes replied. "We're capable of terrible violence when necessary, but also extraordinary compassion when possible. One without the other leads to either extinction or tyranny." In the aftermath, as worlds began the long process of rebuilding, a debate raged within the Alliance about humanity's place in galactic society. Many feared that lifting the quarantine would unleash an unpredictable force that might one day become as dangerous as the Craver. Others argued that isolation had been a mistake born of fear rather than wisdom. The final decision came down to a single, simple question. Could the galaxy afford to separate itself from a species that had proven so essential to its survival? 6 months after the war's end, a diplomatic vessel from the Alliance approached Earth's solar system. The ancient defense platforms that had maintained humanity's isolation for 3 centuries powered down, their purpose rendered obsolete by a new understanding. Commander Hayes stood on the observation deck, watching as the blue-green world of humanity's origin grew larger in the viewport. After ensuring the treaty with the Craver was implemented and the Alliance military reorganized to prevent similar threats, the human had requested one final mission: to be the one who told Earth that the stars were open to them once more. "Your people will change everything," said historian Ilara, who had insisted on accompanying Hayes for this historic moment. "The galaxy will never be the same." "That's what frightened you about us in the first place," Hayes replied. "But perhaps now you understand that change isn't always something to fear." As the ship entered Earth's atmosphere, heading toward a landing zone where human leaders waited with equal parts confusion and anticipation, Hayes felt something that had been absent since awakening from stasis: hope. Not just for humanity's return to the galactic community, but for a future where human intensity and alien wisdom might balance each other. "We come bringing both warning and promise," Hayes murmured, rehearsing the speech to Earth's leaders. "The galaxy is vaster and more dangerous than we imagined, but also filled with wonders beyond description. And despite 3 centuries of isolation, we've been remembered. Not always kindly, not always accurately, but remembered nonetheless." The landing struts touched Earth's soil as Hayes finished the thought aloud. Because in their darkest hour, they unleashed the one force that terrified them: a human. And in doing so, discovered we were what they needed all along.